All right, if you can see my screen, go ahead and say in the chat, yes. You can put 1 in the chat if you see my screen. Push 2 in the chat if you cannot see my screen today. Okay, fantastic. All right, and obviously you can hear me, because if you couldn't, you wouldn't know what I just said. So let's get started. First off, I want to say thank you for being here. As many and all of us know, cyber attacks are a growing problem, and they just keep getting more and more prevalent on our businesses these days. So it's important that we stay up to date on what's happening. We're here to educate. That's what we love to do, is educate businesses, whether that be an executive level, so you're aware of what's happening in our field today in regard to cyber attacks attacking financial services or wealth management. If there's any questions that you may have throughout this presentation, please feel free to email us at hello@rethinksecure.com. Like I said, this is 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll try to get you through this. So our agenda today, we have our introduction, we have current cybersecurity landscape, recent attacks and breaches, cybersecurity best practices, and any updates on the FTC safeguards and compliance, which, as many of you probably know, there were some recent updates with the SEC and protection of consumer information for wealth management firms. So we will dig into that here in a few minutes as well. So who are we? Vandernet is a cybersecurity focused IT solutions company, and we focus really on the US Central region, protecting accounting and wealth management firms. That is what we do day in and day out, 24/7, holidays, all the time. So it's a growing problem. Everything's changed since COVID. When COVID happened, it was like an anvil fell out of the sky and hit an anthill. And then next thing we know, all these people that were behind a corporate firewall were at home working with their husbands, their kids, wives. Everybody was underneath the same roof. And what that led to, cyber criminals picked up pretty quickly, is we had intellectual property, we had personal identifiable information, and now it left the corporate network and now it's at home. And so that's when we at Vandernet decided to really focus and double down on cybersecurity. And that's why we're a cybersecurity first IT solutions company. And so we'll lead into our current cybersecurity landscape, the latest trends, threats, and developments in cybersecurity that we believe will focus on for you and what you can take away from today, and how it will better protect you, your business, and your employees. So over the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about specific areas in regard to how companies actually experience a cybersecurity incident. The first way that companies experience a cybersecurity incident is called social engineering, and we talked about that 2 weeks ago. Then we talked about vulnerabilities last week, and this week we're going to talk about how malware is distributed, and that being through a supply chain attack. So today we're going to talk specifically about a supply chain attack and what that looks like for your organization. Supply chain attacks can happen in a variety of ways. And the way that they happen is either through software you already have installed, a vendor that maybe software you subscribe to, or software that you've installed that was free. I would say that you subscribe to it too, but you're like, hey, this is a free tool. I need to install it on my computer. I need to use it. But there are ramifications sometimes for installing free software on our computer, or cheap software opposed to a name brand piece of software. And I'll talk more specifically about that here in just a couple of minutes. But the software that you see on your screen, the CC Cleaner 2017, this is a free piece of software that was, you install it and it helps you kind of clean up temporary files, registry entries, stuff, just general stuff on your computer that a normal person would not know how to clean up. What happened was hackers got into their software platform, and in an update they pushed out, hackers put their code in that update for that software application. It pushed out, and the next thing we know, the automatic update feature in that piece of software went out to all of these computers, and the hackers were in. The same thing happened for SolarWinds. I'm not for sure if many of you heard about the SolarWinds incident, but it was a foreign state actor that used SolarWinds software. An intern left a password out on the web on accident that was accessible by hackers. The next thing they know, they were using that username and password to get into SolarWinds company, alter the code of SolarWinds, and then when that update was pushed out, it pushed out. But like I said, it was the nation state actor. They were specifically after government entities that were using the SolarWinds product. And so it was the government that discovered that SolarWinds was in their system, or not SolarWinds, hackers got into their system via the SolarWinds update. And last commonly is 3CX. 3CX is becoming a widely adopted voice over IP phone system platform. And I believe it was just last year that this happened. Hackers used a very sophisticated way to get into a employee's computer that was using it for playing games and personal use. Once the hacker got into the employee's computer, then they realized that they had access to send out updates, malicious updates for 3CX. So the updates happen automatically at 3CX on Saturday evening or Sunday evenings. So as a result of that release, hackers were able to get compromised 3CX systems. Fortunately, they caught it really fast and they released patches very, very quickly. But it doesn't stop the fact that it happened. And so the problem that you have to ask specifically with like CC Cleaner, it's a free piece of software. Do they have what it takes to implement best practice cybersecurity strategies to have a security team focused around securing their application? And if they're releasing a product for free, the answer is probably no. And so we have to be really careful. These are called supply chain attacks, where you have a vendor, they get compromised, and the next thing you know, it's come down to your accounting firm or your wealth management firm. So we have to be extremely mindful of those things. Another way would be a supply chain attack would be is you have a vendor, maybe their email got compromised, and then they send you a malicious invoice. So you think, hey, it's a vendor I do business with. But when you receive the email, you click on it because you're like, I am up to date, I'm current, or my client, if you're an accounting firm, you know, a lot of you accounting firms pay invoices on behalf of your client. You manage that day in and day out. But that fraudulent invoice was from a hacker, not from really the vendor that you thought you were receiving it from, even though the vendor's email was compromised, and you clicked on that PDF file that you thought was an invoice. Next thing you know, it's executed arbitrary code across your company systems. So let's move on to recent cyber attacks and breaches. What's going on in the news today that you need to know about? And that's where we're headed next. So scenario number one is North Korean hackers exploit Facebook Messenger to target malware campaign. Today's message is about you allowing employees to utilize social media at work and what those ramifications could have on your business. We're not against social media as a platform, but we have to be extremely careful when social media is allowed to be accessed on our work computers, on our company business devices, because there's ramifications for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a slide, my web browser, and we're going to quickly just briefly look at this. We have three things that we're going to go over. This is scenario number one. So as you can tell, threat hackers, they are creating malicious accounts. We're all aware of malicious accounts, fraudulent accounts that were made on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. Hackers are making fraudulent accounts, or they're stealing other people's identities, friends that you know. They're stealing their pictures, creating fraudulent Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, and the next thing you know, you're getting a message or a friend request from a friend that you already were thinking you were a friend with, but maybe you weren't really a friend with them and you accept it. Next thing you know, you get a message on Facebook, right? And then there's a URL link, what leads to like maybe a OneDrive file, or like, hey, I'm going to share this information with you. This might not even be specifically you. This could be an employee that works in your organization that could be doing this on your work computer because they're logging into their personal social media accounts on your computer. They're downloading this document that was sent to them via a OneDrive share in Facebook Messenger. Next thing you know, it's executing code across your organization that then allows malicious things to happen, like encrypting your files. So it's extremely important we have the necessary protections in place that would help mitigate anything like this that could happen. But you need to be aware of that social media is, we call it the new edge in our area of expertise today. It used to be the firewall we used to call the edge, but social media is now the edge to cybersecurity and potentially the access to your business. And so the next thing that we're going to talk about is scenario number 2 is hacking groups new favorite way of keeping their actions hidden. And you're like, how do they do that? So what you need to understand is that these hackers are trying to obscure their identity. They're trying to make it harder for them to get caught in the process. And so we're going to look at this article, and this article is really fascinating because this article is talking about how they are utilizing, this is specifically talking about how China hacking groups are utilizing the sophisticated network where they can use what we call IoT devices, Internet of Things. We all have Internet of Things, whether that's in our business or at home, and they're using these things that we think are fulfilling a purpose or function inside our house, like a thermostat, smart lights. But those devices themselves come from typically one place, and that's called China. And so, and usually they're developed so cheaply, they provide the function, they do what we think it should do, but the security is little to nothing in those devices. So it's extremely important on those Internet of Things devices that they exist on a guest network and not on your network where your business is taking place and where your business is transacting. It needs to be on an IoT network specifically to those types of things, or it needs to be on a guest network, not on your business network. Because, and that goes for security cameras as well. That's a great, another example of IoT. But they're using these devices. They're compromising these devices. Whether it's a vulnerability like we talked about last week, or a supply chain attack where they're taking over a company, a tech company, that produces cameras, thermostats, and then releasing an update and their code update. And now the hackers have control over it. And they use these as proxies to get to wherever they want on the internet. So if you think about it, you have millions and millions and millions of IoT devices all across the United States. If 10%, just say 100,000 of those devices get compromised, then you have hackers that have unique ways of coming from your house where you're watching Netflix at midnight or 10 p.m. or your place of business during the business hours, during the business day, and they're compromising your network. They already have compromised your network because of the IoT device, which could lead to other like ransomware and other things. But they're using those devices to have targeted attacks towards other entities or nation states. Your business could be used to hack the federal government, and you have no idea that it's being used to do that. So it's extremely important that there's security and caution when purchasing IoT devices and how they're hooked up to your network. So they created their own unique autonomy with these devices, and they can come out of your home, my home, whatever home, and hack. And so it makes it extremely hard from the Federal Bureau of Investigation or the CIA or any other intelligence agency to figure out where these cyber criminals are located. Specifically, there's a ransomware group called Lockbit, and they're after them right now, and they're after the actual leader of Lockbit, but they're having an extremely hard time finding him because of this ability to be anonymous and come from anywhere. So let's continue. I think it's important that you know today that within the last week or so, there's been changes in how the SEC has released some changes concerning reporting incident, and we're going to go over that here in a second. Let me switch to that slide. Okay, scenario number 3 is US SEC updates customer data hacking rules for Wall Street. We're going to look at this article real quick, and then we're going to go look at the actual data of that. Actually, we'll go straight to that and just talk about the things that the SEC has realized that they're rolling out, and you need to be aware of these changes that are coming that could affect your wealth management firm. And we will see it come to the Federal Trade Commission. Doesn't usually follow very much slowly after the SEC and implement these things for the accounting and other financial services industries. So we're going to talk about Wall Street top regulator. Wall Street's top regulator on Thursday said it had updated rules to ensure investment companies and others work to detect and respond to hackers' theft of consumer data. The key thing that I want you to take into effect is companies affected by these rules will have to come into compliance 18 months or 2 years from the date the changes appear in the Federal Register, according to the agency. So today we're going to be talking about the final rules, enhancements, regulation S-P. So what is happening? It says on May 15, 2024, the Security Exchange Commission adopted amendments to regulation, the regulation that governs the treatment of non-public personal information about consumers by certain financial institutions. The Commission proposed the amendments on March 15th, and the public comment file is available online. So why is this important? What is changing that you will be responsible for? You'll be responsible for having an incident response program. You'll be able to not only have to have controls in place for an incident, like an actual plan, but you'll actually need to make sure that that plan works. You'll have customer notification requirements. It says that you'll have the amendments require a covered institution to provide the notice as soon as practicable, but no later than 30 days after becoming aware of an unauthorized access to or use of customer information has occurred or is increasingly likely to have occurred, except under certain specific limitations. So 30 days, no later than 30 days unless you specifically meet specific reasons why you would not be able to do that. This is huge. And one thing I would say is it's not just saying if the data gets leaked, it's saying unauthorized access to the data. So like I said earlier, 18 months or 24 months of the date following the publication. So please, I've included a link. It's the SEC files. You can Google it. Final rules, enhancements, regulation S-P. Please go check this out because it could affect your it will affect your wealth management firm. So it's imperative that you're on top of this and that you have the necessary things in place to help mitigate and further the spread of a cybersecurity incident or an attack that could lead to PII, personal identifiable information, which we all know you guys have the most sensitive information and data for your customers. So that being said, I wanted to remind you, I reminded you of the last 3 weeks. This is every time you open software on your computer, that software can access everything you can. So be mindful of that. Be mindful that if you're thinking, hey, I think I want to install this, consult your IT department. Make sure that there's no red flags on that piece of software, because the last thing you need is that personal identifiable information that you have that your customers trust you with out on the internet everywhere else. So I always leave you with one thing, a cybersecurity best practice that's important for your company that you can take away and apply today to help better secure your business, your customers, and to help you grow your business to where you want to go. And today's cybersecurity best practice is the big idea is to have a social media policy of usage. And this is specifically social media in regard to, are you going to allow it to be your employees to log into their personal social media, interact on a lunch break or whatever time during the day? And if they are going to use it for business purposes, make sure it's clearly stated that it needs to be used for only business purposes. So I know we're running just a few minutes over. right now, but I would love to pull up for you an example and just kind of walk you through what having a social media policy and protecting your company's social media accounts and why that's important. So I have here an example of our social media policy that we have inside our 90+ page policy document that we provide to our customers, and we work through with them on our cybersecurity strategy through our customer journey. And so it's important that you're covering things like social media on work devices, that all the social media accounts that are being used for your business, that you're making sure that they have multi-factor authentication enabled on it. It might not be your account, like they might have to use their account to access your business page, but you absolutely need to make sure multi-factor authentication is enabled on your social media account. So some of you have third-party brokers like entities that manage your social media with wealth management. A good example would be like a company like LPL. Some of you outsource your social media and marketing to LPL. Well, it's important that you make sure that if you're going to share your social media account with LPL, that they have mandatory MFA in order to access yours. So that way, if they somehow were compromised or that specific account that employee is using is compromised, then the MFA will help protect your information from hopefully them not posting fraudulent stuff on your page. The last thing I want to do is make sure that when it comes to social media policies, it's important that anybody that is managing your business page has MFA enabled on it. Extremely important, because that's what is going to keep the new edge, your business, your new website. People don't go to websites as much as they go to social media. If people are looking for reviews, they're going to social media. If they're looking for how relevant your business is today, are you staying up to date? They're going to go to social media for that. So the big idea today is just make sure that you have a social media policy that is for how your employees are able to use their social media accounts on your company computers, but then that your business pages are being protected by those that have access to it with multi-factor authentication. People don't think about it. It's not something that's common. And LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of those need to have multi-factor authentication enabled on those. So I conclude today with just once again, thank you for being here. I try to keep it 15 to 20 minutes max to get you the information you need and to get you back to your workday. If you have any questions, please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen. Book a 15-minute free cybersecurity strategy session with us. We'd love to talk to you about cybersecurity. We're super passionate about it. We absolutely love cybersecurity and protecting businesses every single day. And it's a layered approach. We call it defense in depth. And if you have any questions, please reach out, scan the QR code, book that 15-minute free cybersecurity strategy session with us, or email dkane@vandernet.io. We're here as your trusted partner to help you answer the difficult questions and to secure your business. We hope to see you next week. Like I said, this is weekly Thursdays, 1:30 Central Standard Time, PM, to get you the information you need and back to work. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.